The galaxy was no stranger to danger, but when the Zerathis Star System began destabilizing, the Galactic Council realized they were facing an unprecedented catastrophe. Zerathis was home to 5 planets and their flourishing civilizations, all orbiting a star whose once stable fusion reactions had begun to spiral out of control. Massive solar flares wreaked havoc on nearby planets, atmospheric conditions shifted unpredictably, and gravitational anomalies caused entire moons to collapse into their parent planets. The star, scientists warned, was on the verge of terminal collapse, an event that could obliterate the entire system. At Starbase Ecliptica, the galaxy's foremost research hub, the brightest alien minds gathered to tackle the crisis. Advanced races like the crystalline Xylox and the reptilian Tharvan brought their cutting-edge technology and centuries of engineering expertise. Yet every proposed solution, stellar siphons, fusion regulators, containment fields, failed spectacularly. Chief Engineer Talrex, a Tharvan with bronze scales and a commanding presence, stood in the Starbase's central command chamber. A holographic projection of the Zerathis star spun slowly before him, its surface crackling with ominous flares. Surrounding him were alien engineers, their faces tense as new simulations projected failure after failure. "Our latest containment field lasted a mere 5 minutes," said Dr. Lizeth, a sleek avian scientist with iridescent feathers. Her sharp eyes darted to Talrex. "We're running out of time." "Perhaps we need more power," rumbled Vorthan, a massive insectoid engineer whose armored plating gleamed under the station's pale blue lights. "We've already diverted energy from 3 systems," Talrex growled. "If power were the solution, this star would already be stabilized." The room fell silent. Frustration hung heavy in the air. It was Councillor Reinl, a silver-skinned diplomat observing the proceedings, who broke the silence. "Perhaps it's time to consider unconventional help." All eyes turned to Reinl. "You mean humanity?" Lizeth's feathers flared slightly, an avian gesture of incredulity. "They've only recently joined the Council. Their methods are chaotic at best." "They're unpredictable," Reinl countered. "And unpredictability may be exactly what we need." Reluctantly, the Council approved the suggestion. A message was sent to Earth, and humanity answered in the form of Dr. Axel Grant, a human astrophysicist renowned for his audacious theories and habit of making impossible solutions work. When Dr. Axel Grant arrived at Starbase Ecliptica, the reaction was lukewarm at best. A human? Really? The alien engineers exchanged skeptical glances as Axel stepped off his transport ship, a wide grin on his face and a battered satchel slung over his shoulder. "Dr. Axel Grant," he introduced himself, shaking hands with a bemused-looking Talrex. "Don't worry, I'm here to solve your star problem, no biggie." Talrex's yellow eyes narrowed. "You do understand the gravity of the situation?" "Sure," Axel replied breezily. "Stars freaking out, planets in trouble, you've tried all the fancy stuff, and now you're calling in the scrappy newcomers. Got it." The casual tone grated on the rigid Tharvan engineer, but Councillor Reinl's approving nod signaled that Axel was to be given full access to the research. Accompanying Axel was Elliot West, a quiet but sharp-witted physicist whose specialty was gravitational mechanics. While Axel dived headfirst into analyzing the data, Elliot worked in the background, offering technical support and translating Axel's ideas into terms the alien engineers could understand. Axel approached the Zerathis star problem differently than the aliens. Instead of focusing solely on the star itself, he looked at the entire system as an interconnected web of relationships. "Your star isn't the problem," he said during his first presentation, pointing at the holographic projection. "It's the victim, the planets, the moons, the gravitational forces. They're all part of the puzzle. Fixing the star means balancing the system." Talrex leaned back, his tail twitching. "Balancing an unstable star requires precision. How do you propose to balance gravitational forces on a galactic scale?" Axel grinned. "Planetary alignment." The room erupted in incredulous murmurs. You mean to shift planets into specific positions? Lizeth said, her feathers quivering. Do you realize how absurdly dangerous that is? Sure, Axel replied, but it's also simple. Use gravitational slingshots to nudge the planets into alignment. Their combined gravitational pull will create a stabilizing effect on the star. Talrex snorted. Slingshots? That's a primitive tactic. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective, Axel shot back. You've tried advanced. Let's see what old-school physics can do. Councillor Reinl raised a hand to quiet the room. We will simulate this plan. If it shows promise, we proceed. The simulation began, and the results shocked everyone. Axel's plan worked, on paper. By aligning the planets and using their gravitational forces in concert, the simulation showed a significant reduction in the star's instability. But implementing the plan was a logistical nightmare. Moving planets required advanced planetary thrusters, precise calculations, and perfect timing. This is madness, Talrex muttered as the simulation ended. Madness that works, Kinara, the crystalline engineer, interjected. Her shimmering body refracted the holographic light. Perhaps there's value in simplicity. Despite lingering skepticism, the council approved the plan. Axel was placed in charge, with Talrex reluctantly serving as his second-in-command. Over the next few days, Axel and his team coordinated the deployment of planetary thrusters, gravity stabilizers, and asteroid deflectors. Every step of the process was met with tension as alien engineers argued over the risks involved. You're treating this like a chaotic puzzle, Talrex snapped at one point. This is astrophysics, not a human game. And yet, Axel replied calmly, we're winning the game so far. Even Elliot, typically reserved, couldn't resist a quip. It's either this, or wait for the star to go boom. I vote puzzle. As the countdown to implementation began, Axel stood on the observation deck of Starbase Ecliptica, gazing at the unstable star. The stakes had never been higher, but he couldn't suppress a grin. Showtime, he muttered. Starbase Ecliptica's command center buzzed with activity as Dr. Axel Grant and his team prepared to execute his unconventional plan. Holographic displays projected real-time data from the Zerathis System, planetary orbits, gravitational forces, and the volatile energy waves of the unstable star. All planetary thrusters are operational, reported Kinara, the crystalline engineer whose prismatic body refracted shimmering light throughout the room. We can begin realignment on your command. Axel stood at the center of the room, his arms crossed and an easy grin on his face. All right, people. Remember, this isn't a demolition derby. Smooth adjustments, precise movements. Let's make this cosmic dance a showstopper. Dance? Chief Engineer Talrex muttered under his breath, his bronze-scaled tail twitching. Humans and their metaphors. Axel smirked, overhearing him. You're going to love it when I start comparing the star to a disco ball. The first phase required the repositioning of Krythos, the largest gas giant in the Zerathis system. With its immense mass, Krythos was both the system's stabilizer and its potential destabilizer. The team deployed enormous planetary thrusters, devices designed to emit controlled bursts of gravitational energy to adjust Krythos's orbit. Thrust at 60%, called out Elliot West, his calm tone masking the tension in the room. Trajectory looks stable. The gas giant's movement was slow but steady, its orbit shifting slightly toward the calculated position. The entire command center held its collective breath as Krythos completed its alignment without issue. Well, Axel said, exhaling dramatically, that was the warm-up. Who's ready for the grand finale? The second phase of Axel's plan introduced a new challenge, redirecting an asteroid into the star's orbit. By carefully guiding the asteroid's gravitational pull, the team hoped to dampen the star's erratic energy waves. It's risky, Axel admitted during the briefing, but it's also elegant. One rock, one slingshot, one stabilized star. If it fails, that one rock could destroy an entire planet, Talrex growled. Which is why it won't fail, Axel replied confidently. Elliot, you've got the numbers, right? Always, Elliot said with a small smirk. You keep dreaming up the impossible, and I'll keep doing the math. As the asteroid deflection began, tension in the command center reached its peak. Using a carefully timed burst from a thruster array, the asteroid's trajectory was nudged just enough to bring it into alignment. The glowing projection of its new path showed it heading directly toward the star's gravitational field, where it would orbit safely. Beautiful, Kanara said, her crystalline form shimmering with excitement. Beautifully reckless, Talrex grumbled. Reckless is my middle name, Axel quipped, earning an exasperated groan from Talrex. With Krythos and the asteroid in place, the team turned their attention to the system's smaller planets and moons. Each adjustment required painstaking calculations and precise timing, and every step was met with challenges. At one point, an unexpected gravitational surge caused a moon to veer dangerously close to its parent planet. That's not part of the choreography, Axel exclaimed, studying the projections. Elliot chimed in calmly. We can use the asteroid's passing trajectory to correct it. A quick gravitational pulse should do it. Do it, Axel said, nodding. And someone remind that moon to stick to the script. The correction worked, and the moon returned to its stable orbit. Axel turned to Talrex with a grin. Tell me that wasn't impressive. Talrex sighed. Impressive. Chaos. But chaos nonetheless. As the final alignments were completed, the Zerathis Star began to stabilize. Its once violent energy waves grew calmer, and the erratic solar flares diminished. The star's surface, which had been roiling with instability, began to settle into a steady, golden glow. The command center erupted in cautious applause. It's working, Elliot said, a hint of awe in his usually reserved tone. Of course it is, Axel replied with a grin. I mean, come on, did anyone doubt me? Talrex raised a claw. Yes, all of us. Axel laughed, slapping Talrex on the back. Fair enough. Let's call it a team effort. Just as the team began celebrating, alarms blared across the command center. The asteroid's trajectory had shifted slightly, veering too close to one of the newly aligned planets. If it collides, Talrex warned, his voice low and serious, the entire system destabilizes again. Axel frowned, quickly scanning the data. We need another gravitational anchor to redirect it. What's nearby? Only a small comet, Kanara said, her tone uncertain. But it's too insignificant to make an impact. Not if we amplify its mass, Axel said, his eyes lighting up with a sudden idea. A controlled detonation could give it just enough pull to shift the asteroid back on course. That's insane, Talrex said flatly. It's creative, Axel countered, and it's all we've got. With no time to lose, the team executed Axel's risky plan. A small ship was dispatched to the comet, deploying a precisely timed detonation that increased its gravitational pull. The comet's new trajectory intersected with the asteroid, creating just enough of a tug to nudge it back into alignment. Trajectory corrected, Elliot announced, his voice breaking the tense silence. The command center erupted in cheers. Axel leaned back in his chair, letting out a satisfied sigh. And that, my friends, is how you win a cosmic game of billiards. With the final adjustments in place, the Zerathis Star reached full stabilization. Its fusion reactions returned to normal, and the planets in its orbit settled into a stable alignment. The once chaotic system now shone with calm brilliance. Axel stood before the holographic projection of the star, his expression a mix of triumph and relief. Not bad for a scrappy human, huh? Talrex approached him, his imposing frame casting a shadow over Axel. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, with a reluctant nod, he extended a clawed hand. You proved me wrong, Doctor. Grant, your chaos has merit. Axel shook his hand, his grin widening. I'll take that as a compliment, big guy. The Zerathis Star System, once on the brink of annihilation, was now a model of celestial harmony. The star's fusion stabilized, the gravitational anomalies ceased, and the planets settled into their adjusted orbits. Across the system, civilizations that had braced for extinction erupted into celebrations. At Starbase Ecliptica, the mood was jubilant, though tinged with exhaustion. Dr. Axel Grant stood in the now quiet command center, watching the holographic projection of the star. "You did it," Elliot West said, standing beside him with a steaming cup of tea in hand. "We did it," Axel corrected, giving his colleague a friendly nudge. "This wasn't exactly a solo act." Elliot smirked. "Still, I think you've earned the galaxy's most creative astrophysicist award. That comet trick, pure madness." "Madness is what we do best," Axel replied with a wink. A week later, the Galactic Council convened to formally acknowledge the Zerathis mission's success. The Grand Chamber buzzed with anticipation as delegates from dozens of species took their places in glowing, floating pods. At the center of the chamber, a massive holographic projection of the stabilized Zerathis star spun slowly, casting a golden glow across the room. Dr. Axel Grant stood in the spotlight, flanked by Elliot West and Chief Engineer Talrex. Councillor Reinl, the silver-skinned diplomat who had championed humanity's involvement, addressed the assembly. "Today, we celebrate the preservation of the Zerathis Star System," Reinl began, their melodic voice resonating through the chamber. "This achievement is a testament to the power of collaboration and the importance of embracing diverse perspectives. In particular, we owe a great debt to Dr. Axel Grant and his team for their ingenuity and perseverance." The room erupted in applause, though a few delegates still exchanged wary glances. Humanity's reputation as a chaotic species lingered, but today it was being celebrated as an asset rather than a liability. Talrex stepped forward, his imposing figure commanding attention. "I must admit, I was skeptical of Dr. Grant's methods," he said, his deep voice steady. "But his creativity and daring have taught me something invaluable. Sometimes, the best solutions are the ones we least expect." Axel leaned toward Elliot, whispering, "Did Talrex just compliment me? Somebody pinch me." Elliot chuckled quietly as the applause swelled again. After the ceremony, Councillor Reinl approached Axel and Elliot privately. "The Council has been impressed by humanity's contributions," they said. "Your ability to think beyond conventional logic has proven invaluable. We would like to offer you a formal role in the Galactic Crisis Initiative." "The Galactic Crisis Initiative," Elliot repeated, raising an eyebrow. "An interdisciplinary task force," Reinl explained, "dedicated to addressing large-scale galactic threats. You would lead the initiative's creative problem-solving division." Axel folded his arms, considering the offer. "Does this come with an office, or do I get a starship?" Reinl's lips twitched in what could almost be called a smile. "You'll have the resources you need, Dr. Grant, including a starship." Axel glanced at Elliot. "What do you say, partner? Fancy saving the galaxy on a regular basis?" "I thought that's what we just did," Elliot quipped, but his grin betrayed his enthusiasm. Before departing Starbase Ecliptica, Axel and Elliot made their rounds, bidding farewell to their alien colleagues. Kinara, the prismatic crystalline engineer, shimmered brightly as she spoke to Axel. "Your methods were unconventional," Kinara said, "but undeniably effective. You have inspired us to think in ways we never considered." "Coming from you, that's high praise," Axel replied with a grin. "Don't let Talrex hog all the credit for our success." Talrex himself approached, his usual stern demeanor softened. "You're an infuriating man, Dr. Grant," he said, extending a clawed hand. "But I respect your results. The galaxy could use more minds like yours." Axel shook Talrex's hand firmly. "Coming from you, I'll take that as a glowing endorsement." Back aboard their research vessel, Axel and Elliot reviewed their next assignment. A distant system was experiencing gravitational instability, and the Council had requested their expertise. "Another star system on the brink," Elliot said, scanning the briefing. "Sounds familiar." "Good," Axel replied, flipping through his battered notebook. "Because I've got a few tricks we didn't get to use last time." As the ship's engines powered up, Axel leaned back in his chair, staring at the endless expanse of stars beyond the viewport. "You know," he said, grinning at Elliot, "the galaxy isn't ready for us." Elliot smirked. "And yet, here we are." With a burst of light, the ship leapt into hyperspace, heading toward their next impossible challenge.